Melanie Hall.
She was brutally beaten about the head, tied up in some bin bags and thrown away on the side of a motorway like a crisp packet.
As we reveal new leads, can you name her killer? Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We're live and the studio is packed with senior detectives from across the country, hoping that your call is going to be the one that helps solve a major crime tonight. Like the murder of 25-year-old Melanie Hall, whose remains, you'll remember, were found near the M5 in Gloucestershire this month. More on that case in just a moment. Also on the programme, he took away so-called trophies but left behind a string of clues. Can you name the sex attacker whose sickening assault has all but destroyed an elderly woman's life?
I struggled at the door. I fought like a lion.
What do you want?
So more on that to come. But now it's over to Rav. What have you got for us tonight, Rav?
I'm on the hunt for this lot, some of Britain's most wanted. And after violent clashes at the Millwall-West Ham game at Upton Park back in August, we need you to name the hooligans who went on the rampage that day.
Plus, how it took the country's leading voice recognition expert to nail Richard Garner, a man so desperate for money, he'd even resort to killing his own father.
Thanks, Matthew. But first, a case that has really made the headlines this month, the murder of Melanie Hall. 13 years ago, the 25-year-old graduate went missing from a nightclub in Bath. Despite a massive manhunt and several appeals on Crimewatch, her disappearance remained a complete mystery. That was until 3 weeks ago, when her remains were discovered near the M5 in Gloucestershire. As we reveal new evidence in the case tonight, her parents ask for your help. Rav joined detectives at the scene.
There's growing concern for the safety of a woman who's been missing since the weekend.
Police investigating the case of a missing 25-year-old woman are marking the second anniversary of her disappearance by offering a reward.
10 years after their daughter disappeared, her parents made another heartfelt appeal.
Earlier this month, workmen clearing this spot by the M5 discovered a black bin bag. Inside were human bones belonging to a young woman. After 13 agonising years, Melanie Hall had been found.
She was a very kind girl, always there, ready to help people. A person slightly in the shadows. She was quite shy and it took her a little time to get used to people, but once she did, then she was a good friend.
She was a very home-loving girl, bright, intelligent. She'd completed her degree, just enjoyed going out and only enjoyed her friends.
As small children, we used to wear the same clothes. My mum used to dress us in the same clothes, so we were, you know, almost like twins. We did everything together, you know, brownies, guides. We went to the same primary school, we went to the same, you know, secondary school as we grew older. You know, we were very, very close as sisters.
On the evening of Saturday the 8th of June 1996, 25-year-old psychology graduate Melanie Hall met up with her boyfriend and their friends to go clubbing at Cadillac's in Bath. In the early hours of Sunday morning, Melanie's friends left the club thinking her boyfriend was still there. What they didn't know was that he had already left without telling anyone.
I'll see you Monday. Okay, see you later. See ya.
See you later, Mel.
Bye. Bye.
What then happened to Melanie remains a mystery.
I think probably over the first couple of years, probably we did raise our hopes every time the police came to tell us that there might be some progress in the investigation. But as the years go by, there's no way you can function at that level every time somebody comes up with possibly some information.
Since her disappearance nearly a month ago,
Police diving teams searched this area of the River Avon at the time of Melanie's disappearance. 2 men were arrested in connection with the murder hunt, but were later released without charge.
As the years went by, I did believe, or began to believe, that whatever had happened to Melanie, that possibly she would not be found, or possibly not found in our lifetime.
Part of the M5 north of Bristol remains closed tonight after the discovery of a set of bones next to a slip road.
It's about 12:15 and there was a team of workmen who were clearing the drainage ditch that runs alongside this slip road at junction 14. What happened was one of those workmen was trimming the vegetation down, and he then discovered some bones. They looked like human bones and a skull that was exposed.
So this is a scene?
Yes, it is, yeah. I can show you exactly where the body and the remains were.
So it's right under here. What was discovered within here then?
Well, what was found were obviously some of the visible bones, and in particular it was apparent that there were some black bin bags that were either wrapping around or encased some of the body, and wrapped around those bags was some thin blue rope which appeared to have been used to bind around the body and to cover over the black bin bags that were around the remains and the bones that we could see.
How did you identify who on earth this person was?
Well, clearly I need some expert assistance, and I had the assistance of a forensic archaeologist and anthropologist, and it was that forensic archaeologist who very quickly gave us a significant breakthrough by looking at the exposed pelvic bones of the remains, and he was able to say that he believed it to be the body of a woman, probably in her mid-20s.
You also had another crucial lead that came about from here as well.
Yes, we did. As they were conducting the excavation process, we found a gold ring, which was quite distinctive, and it appeared to still be on a finger bone of the remains. And clearly it was at that point that we suspected that these may be the remains of Melanie Hall.
When the police arrived in the evening with these photographs and we looked at them, it was very obvious from the photographs that this ring had a floral type, ivy leaf type pattern on it.
My hands were shaking so much I could hardly hold it to look at, but I think as soon as I saw it, then I realised that it was Melanie's. That's hard to come to terms with, really.
I remember just crying and thinking, it's all over now, she's found, it's all over. That was my first initial feeling.
Melanie had suffered fractures to her skull, cheekbone and jaw, and with the remains now identified, the forensic investigation could begin.
There are a number of forensic experts involved. There's a pollen expert, a soil expert, fingerprint expert, DNA expert. There's a whole series of painstaking processes to go through, but bearing in mind that these remains have been exposed to the elements for 13 years, we're not really sure how successful these processes will be.
So everyone's working on this case. So what areas are individual people working on?
In 1996 there was a huge investigation, and at that time there were literally thousands of statements taken from different people, and staff on this investigation are revisiting and reviewing lots of the investigation that was conducted all those years ago. I've also got staff looking at CCTV that was recovered back from 1996, and obviously since the discovery of a body we've had a number of calls from members of the public. There's a lot of officers devoted to researching that information and seeing how that can help us progress the investigation.
What you still need to determine is what happened to Melanie all those years ago.
Absolutely. We can't rely on forensic evidence in this case, and I am sure that there are people out there that know what happened to Melanie. They know what happened to her in Cadillac's nightclub, and they know where she went and who she was with and how it was that she came to be left by the M5 at junction 14. And I would appeal to anyone who has got information that they haven't revealed for 13 years, for whatever reason, now is the time to come forward. Now is the time to help us detect this crime and bring to justice Melanie's killer.
I know that she's been found, but no one can tell me exactly when she died and exactly how she died. And if you asked any mum, you know, they worry about their children when they're tiny and you lose them on the beach and you can't see them for 5 minutes, you know, your heart sinks. And it's exactly that feeling, and that's every day, all day.
Knowing that she'd been murdered and dumped by the side of the motorway, I really felt the fear for my sister, which is something I hadn't allowed myself to feel for a long time because it's almost too painful to go there.
13 years ago, we had a beautiful, vibrant daughter, you know, on the threshold of life. We now know that she was brutally beaten about the head, tied up in some bin bags, and thrown away on the side of a motorway like a crisp packet. And our focus now is very much on finding the person or persons responsible for that terrible act.
I'm joined now here in the studio by Detective Superintendent Mike Courtier. An ache every day, all day, we heard there. But it seems to me that family are very strong despite everything they've been through.
Yes, they've been extremely courageous and shown great dignity over the last 13 years. What they need to know now is who killed Melanie and why.
It's early days for you and your team, but you want to reveal to our viewers something tonight that may be important in the investigation. What is the new evidence?
Yeah, well, significantly, very close to Melanie's remains, we found some car keys. We know that they're Ford car keys, and we know that they were produced for a vehicle that was manufactured in the mid-1990s, which is the period that we're particularly interested in. And we really need to know what vehicle do those keys relate to and what connection is there with Melanie.
Okay, now you don't need Ford dealership people phoning in and telling you about the keys because you know a lot about the keys, but it's the bunch of them that's quite distinctive in that grouping, and they also have a tag that might be important.
Yes, they do. There's a red master key, a programming key, which is together with 2 ignition keys and an identifiable tag. Now, it's the tag that relates to the keys and not to a particular vehicle. So we don't know which vehicle these keys relate to. We don't know whether they're connected to Melanie's disappearance and her murder, but they have been found in very close proximity, and we just really need to know what is the story behind these keys.
What about forensics? Anything important there?
Well, we know that Melanie's body was wrapped and covered in black bin bags and then tied up with rope similar to this. Those bags and rope are still being subject to forensic examination, but the passage of time may be against us, and we can't rely on forensics in this case.
Mike, let's talk about the passage of time. Let's remind people of precisely the date and what you need to know about the circumstances surrounding that night.
Well, Melanie went out on the 8th of June 1996. The last sighting of her is on the 9th of June in the early hours of the morning in the nightclub at just after 1:10 We don't know what happened to her then. Where did she go? Who was she with? And how is it that her body came to be found by the M5? And what we really need to know is from anyone who does know, who has kept quiet for 13 years, please speak to us, please come and tell us what's happened so we can identify, finally, Melanie's killer and bring them to justice.
OK, Mike, thanks very much. The phones are already ringing here, I have to tell you. There is a very big reward, £20,000 for information leading to an arrest and a conviction. So please do call if you know anything, possibly, that could help. Melanie's family surely have suffered enough. Our number is 0500 600 600. If you want to remain anonymous, that's fine by us. You can call the independent charity Crime Stoppers. I'm going to give you their number too. It's 0800 555 111. If you need to see the appeal again, to home in on some details, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. Right now, though, here's Rav with his most wanted.
And starting off our wall of shame tonight is this chap, Paul Oliveira, wanted for sexually abusing a 14-year-old boy. He was arrested last year but went on the run and hasn't been seen since. Oliveira is 45 years old and has links to London and Belfast. Number 2 here is Polish bouncer Piotr Czerwik, and he's wanted for stabbing a man in a bedsit in Bedford. Police think he could still be working as a doorman here in the UK. He has several distinctive tattoos, including a spider's web on his right elbow and a dragon and tiger on his back. He's dangerous though, so if you see him, don't approach him, just contact the police immediately. Next here is Umjad Abduwada, and he's wanted for defrauding a woman out of £500,000. He used to be a second-hand car dealer and has links to Cardiff and Ireland. And my number 4 here is a new heiress, Olisi Savicius, wanted in relation to the murder of a man in Hayes, Middlesex in August. Ollie Savicius is Lithuanian, has connections to the Fife area of Scotland and London, and may be working as a labourer or decorator. Now, there's a 20 grand reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction. So, do you know where he or any of the others are hiding out tonight? If you do, pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600, or text us on 63399. Just type crime space and then your message, and it's important to leave that space or your message won't get through. And you can also check these mugshots out online, remember, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. And all our most wanted stay on the website until they're caught.
Now, coming up, terrorised in their own home, how a 4-year-old had to watch his mother and sister threatened and bound whilst robbers just helped themselves.
After violent scenes described as a disgrace to football, will you be able to name the hooligans who went on the rampage at the West Ham Millwall clash in August? Matthew.
And I've got the story of how detectives made an astonishing discovery when they proved that this man was responsible for bludgeoning to death his own father.
So all of that is still to come. Now, though, a case that has sickened even hardened detectives, the sexual assault of an elderly widow. It's taken enormous courage for Evelyn, as we're going to call her tonight, to speak out, because police believe that she was targeted by someone who had developed a very dangerous obsession. What followed on the 8th of March this year was horrific, and something her attacker, who took so-called trophies of what he's done, wants to remember forever. If only Evelyn could forget.
Well, the last few years, I was kind of restricted with my husband having Alzheimer's. After he passed away, I did continue going for my little walks because I so enjoyed it.
Well, my mum was always an outgoing sort of person and very self-sufficient. She used to like going to keep fit once a week, and she always has her hair done.
We lost our granddad a couple of years ago, and she's just started rebuilding her life and got back into a routine, really, of going out and seeing her friends. And she sees, you know, we're quite a close-knit family. We all see each other regularly. When all this happened, you know, obviously it was a major setback.
You try not to... well, you've just got to get on with your life, haven't you? And you can't worry families all the time. And
some crimes are such that it's difficult for anybody to get their head around. A sickening sexual attack on an elderly lady in her own home is one such crime. However, the attacker on this occasion left us with so many clues that I'm sure, with your help, we can catch him. We need to go back to the start 3 years ago.
Hello? Who is this?
it was the evening, it was round about 9 o'clock-ish, and I lifted the phone and this voice was asking me questions, what I was wearing and things like that. I just put the phone down and he rang back again about 5 minutes after. He threatened me, he said, don't you put the phone down. He said, you answer my questions or else. Well, this happened 3 times. And the last time, he threatened to burn the house down and harm my family. Overnight, I took the phone off and I thought, well, that'll be it now. It was about 10 o'clock the next morning, well, never thinking it was going to be him again. So that was when I rang the police.
Evelyn changed her number, became ex-directory, and the call stopped. There seemed an unpleasant but brief intrusion into her life.
Well, it was about 9 o'clock-ish. There was this knock on the door.
Hello, who's that?
Hiya, I was just passing. You've got a tile loose on your roof.
I knew the voice, and I thought, I wonder if that's one of the neighbours, because the voice was familiar.
Looks like it's going to go through your bedroom window any minute. I think you better come and see it now.
Oh, all right, just a minute then.
The man we're looking for was wearing a beanie hat. He was unshaven, he had round glasses on, stocky build, spoke with a Carlisle accent, and Evelyn noticed that he reeked of tobacco smoke.
And I thought, oh, it's not a neighbour, I know where that voice is from. It's from the phone calls. It was so distinctive. We struggled at the door. I fought like a lion to get him out, and I was screaming. He put his hand over my mouth. Well, there was a finger, so I bit into this finger, and the blood started pouring out.
The blood gave us a full DNA profile. However, he was not on our databases. If you give us a name, we can eliminate the innocent with a simple mouth swab.
What do you want? What do you want money? You want money?
Yeah, I want money.
Just a minute, I've got some here. I'll let you have it. I've got money. Take this money and then go. Go away. Go on, go now. Go on, off you go.
No.
What do you mean, no?
After this.
Oh, no. Please,
Just-
no.
just
please,
do
no,
this.
no, please,
Just
no.
do this and I'll go.
Oh, no, please, no, please, no. Don't.
Evelyn was subjected to a horrendous and prolonged sexual attack. Before he left, he gave us further clues. This was a man with a disturbing fetish. He wanted trophies.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Just clean your face up a little bit. You've got some of my blood on your face.
Go away. Go away.
Okay.
Go on.
It's better. It's better.
Better with you.
Pants. I'm taking your pants. Listen, if you tell anybody about this, I'll burn your house down. I know your grandson, right? I know he works for the railways. I can have him killed. I'll make it look like an accident. So you don't say a word to anyone, okay? Do you understand?
You're pathetic, you are. You're pathetic.
Here is a man who clearly had detailed knowledge about Evelyn and her family. The question we're asking is, how?
I was sitting watching the television that night, Sunday night, and I heard like some shouting and stuff like that. As I went across the street, this chap came out the neighbour's house, and I said to him,
"You all right?"
"Everything all right, mate?" And he just went, "Yeah."
Hello? Hello? What's happened? Has he done something to you? Stay there, stay there. Get the police, get the police.
The neighbour got a good look at him, and he gave us this. It's remarkably similar to the EFIT. The man set off on foot, and he seemed to know his way around the estate.
After this chap, well, obviously, he knew the area, and he disappeared quite quickly.
Hey, please, what's your emergency? There's a lady across the road from there. Somebody's passed away now. Do you think the lady's still in the property? The lady's in the property, but... And is she elderly, or...? Yes, she's an elderly woman. She's elderly.
The man who did this attacked an old lady in her own home. We need to catch him to allow Evelyn to move on with her life, and because we fear that he may strike again.
She's really uneasy in her own home at night. That'll never go away, to be honest. It's just constantly on her mind, and you know, and always will be for the rest of her life. It's really, it's really spoiled her life, to be honest with you.
Oh, she's taken her independence away. And I mean, my mum, she can't even go up to the shops.
My husband was everywhere in this house, because we'd been married 59 years. And if I looked hard enough, I could see him coming through the door. And, you know, he was just everywhere in the house. I wasn't frightened or anything. He was still there. But now, after this incident, I know it sounds stupid, but he's not there anymore. No, he isn't. Well, I've lost quite a bit of confidence, I suppose. Just horrendous, really.
Well, I'm joined now by DCI Jeff Ashton, who we saw there from Cumbria Police, and behavioural psychologist Pippa Gregory. To you, first of all, Jeff, as we heard that elderly lady say, she fought like a lion, but that was an horrific attack that she went through. How is she doing now?
She's a remarkable woman, Kirsty, very strong, but clearly badly affected by this, and will continue to be affected until we catch this offender.
Lots of good leads. Let's start with the e-fit, and you've also got an artist's impression. Just take us through the description.
Yes, the artist's impression. Wearing a distinctive grey beanie-type hat with a brown and red stripe round it. Wearing glasses, either black or gold-rimmed, but they could have been a disguise, we don't know. So I'd like people to concentrate on the face if they could. The description is, we know he's a white male. He's about 5'4" to 5'7" tall, stocky build.
In terms of his age, quite a wide profile. You think maybe something between 35 and 55. And tell us, where was he last seen? Where was the last absolute sighting of him?
The last absolute sight of him was in heading towards Cumwinton Road on the Harrowby estate, about 10:10 at night. We think he may have local connections, and he clearly has some knowledge of the railway.
Yeah, because he seemed to know how to get out, didn't he?
He did, yes.
You have got CCTV of somebody that you are interested in tracing. Tell us about this person.
Yeah, this is a man we need to eliminate from our inquiries. This is at 10:15 on Petrolbank Road, just off of London Road, on the other side of the estate at Harrowby. And we need to eliminate from our inquiries, and we'd ask anyone who knows him to give us his name, or he himself to come forward, and we can eliminate him.
Okay, and people can have a closer look at that again on our website. Really important to this case is you have a full DNA profile. That must be crucial.
Oh, absolutely. We have a full DNA profile, and my stance throughout this inquiry has been, give us a name, we can eliminate people very easily with a simple mouth swab, you know.
Now, Pippa, you've been working on this case. You've been providing Jeff and his team with a psychological profile of the type of person that you believe would have been capable of perpetrating this attack. It's fair to say there are some pretty unusual aspects to the sort of person who does this. Tell me about them.
Yeah, that's right. There's actually very little aggression in the offence. It's highly sexual, which is unusual even for a rapist. And he's almost gentle at times. We saw in the reconstruction where he wiped the victim's face towards the end of the offence. Now that sort of pseudo-intimacy that he shows, coupled with what we know about the phone calls as well, suggests that he's developed a relationship with himself and the victim, probably for a period of time before the offence, and even sort of substantially longer than that.
What about the obsessive aspect of this? In your view as an expert, is he somebody who will have offended before?
It's likely that there's been some low-level offending before. Certainly there's a level of sexual preoccupation in the offence, which is likely to pervade all aspects of his lifestyle. So women that come into contact with him might be unnerved by his presence. He might use inappropriate language or behaviour. And he's also likely to have a strong fantasy life. We see that he steals items of clothing from the victim. He also takes some photos as well when he's at the scene. And so I think that he's probably also done that with other women, either stolen items from them or perhaps watched them for a period of time, maybe even stalked them as well.
Pippa and Jeff, thanks very much for now. If you think that you know this man, then please pick up the phone now. He needs to be caught tonight. 0500 600 600. You can have a look at the reconstruction, as I say, the artist's impression, the e-fit. They're all on our website, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. If you've been a victim of crime, then there is the victim support line, the number 0845 30 30 900. And now here's Rav with some criminals caught on camera.
Right, here we go. Watch closely, and if you recognise anyone, get dialing.
Check out these two at this Wetherspoons in Warwick in August. Mine's a lemonade, please. Oi, the bar's that way. Where are you off to? You're not going to find any beer in here. After a quick search, he finds some keys and starts trying to open the safe. I'm beginning to feel a bit dizzy. Several failed tries later, and he phones for backup. They eventually find the right key and nick over £4,000. Time to put these two behind bars, and I don't mean to serve drinks. Who are they? The Lost Property Office at Waterloo Railway Station back in June. This man has come to collect £12,000 worth of camera and computer equipment left on a train. Seems fair enough. Problem is, it's not his. He gives a false name and address and is handed the goods before calmly walking away. He certainly hasn't lost his nerve, and now he needs to be found. Do you know him? Who's this outside this Mace supermarket in Lisbon in Northern Ireland last February? He tries the door, But for some reason, the staff aren't too keen to let him in. Can't think why. He walks away, but hasn't given up. He hides the gun down his trousers, reveals his face, and gives it another shot. Not realising it's the same guy, this time he's let in. Once inside, he covers up, pulls out the gun, and demands staff empty the tills. He's armed, dangerous, and needs stopping tonight. So take a good look. He might have been able to trick the staff, but couldn't fool the camera. Name, please. A night on the tiles in Greenwich, South London, in August. Watch the man in the yellow top eyeing up the bloke with his girlfriend. He casually walks past and, without warning, goes for him. And then his mate knocks him out. The victim is sent flying right under the wheels of a moving car, fracturing his skull. While he lies in the gutter, his attackers run off like cowards into the night. The victim is lucky to have survived. These thugs must be stopped before they seriously hurt someone else.
Think you know them? You know what to do. 0500 600 600. If you need a second look, it's also online, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. Or you can text us 63399. Just type crime space and then your message.
Now, do you remember these scenes from back in August? They're West Ham and Millwall fans on the rampage outside West Ham's ground following a Carling Cup tie. The violence erupted after hundreds of supporters invaded the pitch during the game at Upton Park. And it's been branded a disgrace to football by the Sports Minister, Jerry Sutcliffe. Well, the violence was so serious that one man who got separated from his family was cornered, stabbed, and then just left for dead. Well, tonight we are looking for you to identify the hooligans involved. And joining us is DCI Richard Tucker. Evening.
Good evening.
Richard, let's take the case of this man who was stabbed. First of all, what more can you tell us about that?
Well, the 43-year-old Millwall fan, he actually attended the game with his family to watch it, but unfortunately he went to the wrong end of the ground and actually was trying to get into the West Ham end and was redirected. And he was set upon by a large group of young men, well, a group of men between 20 and 40-year-olds who attacked him in the street, and actually one of them stabbed him in the chest once and left him for dead, as you said.
OK, what more do you know about this group of men? Anything else you can tell us?
Well, the descriptions, a couple of them are very distinctive, and they are actually on your website. But as I say, they're quite a large group, aged between 20 and 40, all white. But they attacked him in Tudor Road, and he managed to stagger off to Priory Road, where he collapsed. If it wasn't for the ambulance service, he would have most certainly have died from his injuries.
Terrifying for him. Let's concentrate now on the hooligans and the violence and all the shenanigans that they got up to. What can you tell us?
Well, actually, throughout the evening, as it built up to the game, there was sporadic outbursts of serious disorder all around the game. But the main area was just down from the Upton Park Tube station, outside a place where we know as Queen's Market. And as you saw from the footage earlier, there's about a group of about 200 made a consistent attempt to attack police lines and get at the Millwall fans. A lot of bottles, crates thrown at the police. Police horse got injured. A lot of damage to property. But we've got an awful lot of images for you tonight.
Yeah, we've got 66 images, in fact, that are on our website, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. Take a really good look at them. Some of them very clear indeed. If you recognise any one of these people, pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600, or you could call Crime Stoppers anonymously, 0800 555 111. Now, here's Rav with the rest of tonight's Most Wanted.
Right, my number 5 is Pina Arjanov, and police want to speak to him about an assault in central London last October. The victim was repeatedly kicked and punched and his head stamped on in an unprovoked attack. Pina is from Turkmenistan, and before he disappeared was a student at the Pimlico Academy in South London. 6 here is Paul Boaki Dankar, wanted for conspiracy to import £1.8 million worth of heroin. Now, he walks with a limp and sometimes calls himself Palgrave. He has connections to the Hammersmith, Fulham and Chelsea boroughs of London and could be violent, so if you see him, steer clear and just call police immediately. At 7 here is Colin Wood, wanted for his involvement in a land registry scam which could have seen at least 13 people lose their houses. Wood is last known to have lived on the Wirral and has worked as a builder before. And last, but by no means least, this guy, number 8, 31-year-old Michael Kiberu, who's wanted in connection with the alleged rape of a woman in Wallingford, Oxford. Kiberu, an illegal immigrant, uses the aliases Michael Bucker and Paul Bucker and could be hiding in London as he's a massive Arsenal fan. So come on, get on the phone and tell us where they're hiding tonight. Our number, 0500 600 600, or you can text us, remember, 63399. Just type crime space and then your message. Don't forget to leave that space or your message won't get through.
Now, I have to tell you, the phones are incredibly busy tonight. Loads of calls on Melanie Hall. If you're not getting through, please do keep trying. Don't be put off. Now, our next case is one that the detectives here desperately need your help to solve. Last month, Tracy, her 16-year-old daughter Amy, and little 4-year-old Jake here were targeted at home by robbers determined to get what they wanted at any cost.
Frankie, yeah, you fancy an old banger racing tonight? Yeah? All right then, I'll meet you in the bar about 6, yeah? OK, mate. Bye. All right, Tracy, I'm just popping out with the boys.
All right. Bye, Daddy.
What I do is do skip hire. I started off about 5 years ago. I do quite long hours. So I try and do as much as I can to keep it going, especially the current climate.
Most of the time we were all together on a Sunday.
See you later.
Paul just decided a couple of hours before that he was actually going to go out with his friends. It wasn't something he planned to do. He just said, I'm going out for a little while, you know.
Tracy, Paul and their children are a regular family living in Upper Halliford, a small village near Shepperton in Middlesex. Nothing much happens here, but 6 weeks ago a gang arrived. They were prepared to use violence to get what they wanted.
Right, Mum? What's for dinner?
Let me just sort out the dog a minute and then I'll put Jake to bed and sort you out. What about banana, lovey?
Brilliant, thanks, Mum. Read me a story.
You've already had one, lovey. Go to sleep, it's getting late. Tuck in, Jakey. Night-night.
I was watching TV and then there was a bang on the door and I thought to myself, oh, Amy's friends are here because she was going out.
The New Forest in Hampshire is
He tried to put his hands over my mouth because I was screaming. He had like white socks on his hands.
Give me your rings.
So I took my rings off and I threw them across the floor.
Don't look at me!
At first, I just didn't know what was going on because I heard my mum scream.
Come on, hurry up!
So me and Jake just came downstairs and then went in the kitchen and my mum was on the floor and there was another man there as well.
Right, it's all right, it's all right.
Where's the safe?
It's upstairs.
Show me.
I didn't know what they was going to do, whether they was going to hurt us or just take it and go.
The men knew the family had a safe, but how?
Right, where's the safe?
It's down under the bed.
Right, open it.
I couldn't remember the number. I just couldn't remember it. I kept trying and it was going bleep.
Come on, hurry up, come on!
Please. I'm thinking all the time, what are they doing to my children downstairs?
I'm not about open the safe!
Please, come
Listen to me. If you don't open it this time, we're going to hurt your kids. Now open the safe!
I think I tried it 3 times before I actually got the right number.
Right.
He shoved the money down his tracky bottoms and noticed a flat stomach, so it's like somebody that would go to the gym, and his white Calvin Klein pants sticking over the top of his tracky bottoms.
Come on, let's go. Right, get out on the floor.
Tie her up.
Ow! Ow, you're right.
Shut up.
Don't tie him up. Don't tie him up.
The gang made their getaway in a silver N-Reg BMW and headed out towards the Halliford Road, which heads either to Walton-on-Thames or the other direction towards the M3.
Couldn't believe what they'd gone through. I felt guilty in a way that I was not guilty, but terrible that I wasn't there, that they'd gone through this horrific time without me being there.
We found this industrial strength drain cleaner dumped in a flower pot outside the family house. Did the gang have it with him in case Paul was home? This is so strong, had it been thrown at somebody, it would have caused blindness or burns.
I wonder why they didn't just burgle us when we weren't here, instead of putting my kids through what they put my kids through.
But the family's ordeal wasn't over. A week later, Paul's car was covered in corrosive acid. This can't have been a coincidence. Somebody has a vendetta against this family, and we want to find out why.
Jake asked me what happened, and I tried to, you know, try and think of a story up, and he turned around and said, "Have the bad men come back, Daddy?" It just turned my stomach inside out.
I mean, we all live with the fact that we might get burgled one day. It's the life we live, but not three blokes knock on my door and ran through and terrorise my children. No way.
We strongly believe that someone has given this information to these people, and they're obviously very close to us, and the betrayal is, you know, that's what makes you sick to your stomach, that you've obviously took someone into your house and been generous to them, and they've done this to you.
Well, I'm joined by DS Debbie Crouch, who's part of the investigating team. Very terrifying, really, for this family to go through this.
Yes, after the first incident, they were very shaken up, and then someone vandalised their car. Now they live in fear that these men might come back. For them, the ordeal won't be over until these men are caught.
You think there's more than a robbery that's gone on here, then, do you?
Yes, not only did they steal cash and jewellery, but a week later they returned and vandalised the car, which leads us to believe that it might be another vendetta or something.
Do you think this whole event would have been made worse if Paul had actually been home?
Yes, as was mentioned on the film, they brought with them this drain cleaner, which is the strongest one on the market, and we think that if Paul had been there, they might have obviously used it against him.
Now, since we've filmed our reconstruction, you've had a breakthrough. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, significantly, witnesses said that they saw an old-style red Nissan Micra in the area at the time of the incident, with 3 males matching the description. We believe this might have been an M-Reg. We're obviously keen to hear from anyone who might have seen that vehicle on the night to the 13th of September.
OK, you say 3 guys. You've got good descriptions of 2 of them. Can you take us through the descriptions?
Yes, the lead male was in his 40s, tall and stocky with greying hair, and the second male was in his late 30s, with shaved blonde hair, and was very tall and skinny.
OK. Can you tell us a little bit about the rings that were stolen?
Yes, one of them was her grandmother's, one was an engagement ring, and the other was an eternity ring that had been given to her by Paul. They are very similar to the ones that are shown, but they're not exactly the same. Significantly, the size, I believe, is an I, size I, which I think is one of the smallest sizes out there.
OK, so that might strike people if they've been offered them or somebody's tried to sell them one. OK, Debbie, thanks very much for now. If you can help, then call or text us now. There are the numbers on the screen, 0500 600 600. The text number is 63399. Now here's Rav and Matthew with an update on some previous cases.
First, remember these from last month? They're just some of over 50 racist hate mail letters sent to addresses across England and Scotland since January 2007, including the Prime Minister's constituency office in Fife. Police believed one person was behind them and asked if you could recognise the handwriting. Well, the appeal generated over 100 calls, leading the police to other victims. This led to the arrest of a 70-year-old woman and a 36-year-old man from the Fareham area of Hampshire, and we'll keep you updated on that case.
Now, a remarkable story which shows just how important your call can be. Back in 2006, we featured the brutal rape of a 48-year-old woman in Exeter city centre. The victim was beaten, robbed and left for dead.
Your calls have seldom been more needed than in our first case tonight. We need them to find the rapist who wore a football top like this. It says Exeter Friendly on the front.
There was an article on Crimewatch with the police guy on there, and there was 2 girls who I knew at the time, I met some detectives. They spoke to me, I told them everything I knew, told them where the two girls lived.
It was the vital link that police needed and led them to this man, Jakub Tomczak. He was found guilty of the attack and given 2 life sentences. But that wasn't the end for Lloyd, and what he did next was extraordinary.
I was told I was entitled to some reward money, but I gave it to the victim. I didn't feel like I deserved it at all, and the state that the girl was in after the incident, I really thought it would go towards making her life a hell of a lot better than myself.
Well, an amazing chap, and proof that just a single phone call can make all the difference.
When 59-year-old Frank Garner vanished from the quiet East Yorkshire town of Goole 3 years ago, there was only one person who knew the truth behind his disappearance. It would take a huge and complicated manhunt and some of the most advanced forensic techniques in the world before detectives could finally discover who the person with that secret was. Matthew takes up the story.
Hello, what can I do for you?
I'm worried sick about my dad. He's not at home and he hasn't slept in his bed and I don't know where he is. And
All right, just take a couple of deep breaths.
He's just come out of hospital and it's not like him at all.
You need to just calm down and take a couple of deep breaths.
The man reported missing that day was 59-year-old Frank Garner. The retired factory worker had apparently vanished without a trace. It would take dozens of detectives, hundreds of man-hours, everything from expert voice recognition analysis to extraordinary forensic work to finally reveal the shocking truth behind Frank's disappearance.
A lovable rogue is the best way to describe him. Just a lovable rogue. Richard was the first and foremost in his life. He thought a lot about that lad. He loved that lad. Our lad this and our lad that. It was Frank and Richard, always.
When did you last see your dad?
Yesterday morning, Friday morning, about 10 o'clock, I gave him a lift into Goole, the council offices. You know where the council offices are, yeah?
Thanks to Richard's account, police were able to find CCTV of the journey he made into Goole. After that, there was no sign of Frank.
How would he just go missing, disappear into thin air? I just said, hey, no way, he can't go missing. He's better known than the bellman.
Frank's picture was put out into all the local papers, was circulated around all the sort of common areas that he'd visit in Goole. Checks were made continually with his friends to see whether they'd heard of him after 1 week, 2 weeks, a month. But there are only so many places we can look. The officers found no evidence to suggest where Frank might be.
After 6 months, with no sightings or new leads, the missing persons inquiry was wound down.
When he'd been missing all that time, he can't make any sense of it.
3 years later, a local man looking for rabbits made a gruesome discovery.
The pathologist said that they'd been killed as a result of a heavy blow to the head. That had resulted in fractures to both sides of the skull, which was likely to be when the person was laid down and a heavy force had been used on one side of the head.
Hidden among the bones were 2 tiny plastic tubes, and incredibly, they would hold the key to identifying the body. Whoever was buried there had had surgery to their legs. The tubes were replacement arteries. Detectives fed that information into the missing persons database, and one name popped up. Frank Garner.
They had to tell me that the remains that were there were Frank's. Well, you cry, and you don't want to believe it, but you have to believe it. You're thinking, why would somebody want to do that? Why would they want to take his life?
We started looking at Frank in more detail to work out exactly why he'd gone missing, when he'd gone missing, and to try and work out what had happened to him.
Within days, detectives made a disturbing breakthrough.
between £40,000 and £50,000 had been moved around and taken out of Frank's accounts. And clearly, because we knew that Frank was dead at that point, that gave us some significant cause for concern.
The person taking the money was the very person who'd reported Frank missing, Richard Garner, Frank's son.
Can you give your full name?
Richard James Garner.
However, when Richard was interviewed as a witness, he maintained his original story.
So from his house, then, what route would you have to take?
Well, we come out of the church close up home. The last time I saw him, I was walking past the jailhouse pub, and that was it.
But what about Frank's money?
Did you ever check his balance?
No. I mean, I think once I did look, and he might have had £1,000 in or something like that.
Right.
But that's about it, really. I didn't return to private anymore.
But not only had Richard been prying, he'd been emptying his father's accounts. What's more, detectives had traced electrical cable found at the scene back to Richard's work. He was now the prime suspect in his own father's murder and arrested.
OK, you've been arrested for the murder of your father, Frank Garner. What is your involvement in his death?
I was not involved in his death.
His arrest came as a total shock to his family.
You don't have suspicions about somebody who is a relative, a nephew. He's the last person that you would suspect.
And what Richard said next caught everybody by surprise.
I just want to say that in previous interviews, I may have misled what I told the police.
He created an elaborate lie involving two debt collectors who killed his father, then extorted money from him. Richard was trying to lie his way out of murder. The challenge for detectives was to prove it. One thing became abundantly clear. He had a motive to kill. Unlike his father, who'd led a frugal life, Richard Garner was a heavy gambler and a compulsive spender. His debts were spiralling out of control. Police still didn't have definitive proof Garner was lying, but that was about to change.
When we checked with some of the banks and the financial institutions, they still had records of some phone calls that they said that had been made by Frank Garner.
How can I help you?
Hello there. I have a lump sum ISA, and I was wondering how I went about making a withdrawal on it.
The voice couldn't have been Frank's. He was already dead. But could they prove it was Richard's?
It was quite clear that the caller was disguising his voice. If you listen to his normal pronunciation of a vowel like O, as in a word like phone and spoke, is the local one to this part of East Riding, Yorkshire. So you'd expect phone and spoke. But if you listen to this call, what you hear is...
It's about making a withdrawal on it. I don't know.
So, I don't know.
I don't know.
But when it comes to Barclays...
LNG Barclays Growth Pot.
It's not Barclays, it's the local pronunciation, Barclays.
So he slipped?
He slipped. His performance peaks and he drops off over the course of the call. Each of the calls that we analysed, the caller's voice was consistent with that of Richard Garner. In a way, it's the oldest story in the book. It's a man whose skills at deception were not up to the mark of the crime he'd committed.
And that was really critical in demonstrating that Richard had known all along what had happened to his dad, and not only had he known all along, but that actually he'd been responsible for it.
Detectives now knew that not only did Richard Garner have a motive, he would go to any lengths to get his hands on his father's cash. But one thing remained a mystery, and that would take them right back to the start of this investigation. Was Frank in the car with Richard that Friday morning? A CCTV expert pored over the images. He came to a dramatic conclusion. Daylight spilling in from the back of the car shows up as a single white line of pixels across the windscreen. The break in the line marks where Richard's head is. So where is Frank's?
That's really sinister, because the only place Frank could then have been is in the boot, which means he'd already come to some harm.
Richard had thrown lie upon lie at police to distance himself from Frank's death. But 3 years after he reported his father missing, he was charged with his murder.
What we know is that Frank realised that he's been ripped off by his son.
£4,000! I needed it. There's a word for what you've done, son, and it's theft, theft, theft! You cheat!
Frank sustained a very heavy injury to his head. Richard spent an awful long time just wrapping up his dad in the sofa throw in bin bags and tying him up with electrical threads. Richard then transported his dad to the side of that road and dumped him next to a tree.
You just have to try and think logically and positively that he's sat on the beach in Spain and not.
Yeah.
Something's happened to him.
Richard Garner, a compulsive gambler, pathological liar and murderer, a man desperate enough to kill his own father. In February, he was found guilty by a unanimous verdict and sentenced to life.
How do you stand in front of your own father and murder him? I wish somebody would tell me, because I don't know. I don't know how you can do that.
It's a good question, Matthew, how you can do that from Melanie.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? Murdered by your only child for money. He started stealing from his father when Frank went into hospital using his cards. When he got out, he then started sending him threatening letters, pretending to be from debt collectors, demanding thousands. And then even after the murder, he continued to drain those accounts. I mean, it's quite something.
The forensic experts, so impressive, so important to this case.
Yeah, I mean, right from the pathology, those tiny tubes, the CCTV, I mean, that was really smart detective work. Then the voice detection, I mean, that's an area that is developing so fast. You know, they think within a couple of years, the technology will be available to develop a national voice database, a bit like the DNA database for those instant matches. So that's the potential here of the raw science.
You know, Professor French, I thought, was utterly fascinating. He has worked on some very big cases.
He has. He was used as an expert witness in the Slobodan Milosevic trial at The Hague. He was also used in the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire trial. Do you remember that trial with the Major,
Yes.
the coughing scam? Now, Peter was the guy they brought in to examine the studio recording, the sound, and to work out who in the audience, 260 people, was helping the Major. He did it. I mean, it's an amazing area of work.
Richard Garner, life he got, did he?
Yeah, life with a minimum of 16 years.
Always interesting. Thank you, Matthew. Now, the phones have been red hot tonight. Let's go over to Rav.
They certainly have, Kirsty. We have had well over 100 calls on Melanie Hall. Remember, this is a case that is over 13 years old. Stacks of names given for the possible offender that's finished this young lady's life. However, we don't need any more calls on Blue Rope because some of you, understand, are struggling to get through. If you are, please keep trying and tell us what you know. We have got loads more to tell you about the football violence, the CCTV, the faces and the Carlisle sex attack. So please join us in the update programme. We'll tell you more.
Oh, what a night. That's all for now. Details on all of tonight's cases will, of course, be online, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. You can log on right now for a live update on what's been happening here on the phones. It's been an incredible night, really, really busy. The lines are open until midnight tonight and from 7:30 in the morning. Our next programme, that's going to be just in a fortnight, Thursday the 12th of November. Don't go away because we're going to be back tonight after the news with a full update on all of tonight's cases. If you can help, but you haven't called yet or you can't get through, please do call again. It could all be down to you. I'll see you at 10:35.